able to be present today with us here in Rome, but he could make the time out to be present with us online via Zoom, and so we are very happy and grateful for you, Your Eminence, to be with us in this online format, and very grateful that Corona taught us all to have such great opportunities to have people from around the world present. The second expert speaker will be Nicolas Casayan, who will talk about the Council on Crete as an practical experience of synodality. And we will have first the speech of Metropolitan Vasilios, then we will have the response of the listener, which is Andrea Riedel from Germany, and then we will have the second expert, 20 minutes presentation from Nicolas Casayan, and then response of the listener of Johannes Oeldemann from Germany. And then I will open the discussion to all of you, and hopefully we will have a fruitful discussion about those historical events of synodality in Orthodox Church. So now, again, I remind you, if you don't know the speakers very well, I don't want to take the time from our discussion for presenting them. You have the list of all the speakers, all participants of our conference in your conference papers, so you can have a look at their biography and their work on these papers. So now I'm very happy to welcome Metropolitan Vasilios, and you have 20 minutes, Your Excellence. Very happy to have you here. Welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you, moderator. Greetings from Cyprus, and I'm very sorry I was not able to attend personally the meeting. The topic which I'm going to develop in front of you is practices of synodality, the Council of Nicaea. It is commonly accepted that the Nicene First Ecumenical Council holds a prominent place in comparison with the previous local synods convened to deal with problems that have arisen over time, which had to be confronted not only by the local church under the bishop and including the presbytery and the faithful, but also with the participation of neighboring bishops. This was the case, for example, for the election and ordination of bishops, given that the jurisdictional boundaries of the eparchies, the provinces, had not yet been established. Let me, out of my text now, make a small comment about the previous discussion, because here the bishop with the presbyters and the lay people, the faithful, when, for example, today I was celebrating the Eucharist because of the translation of the relics of St. George, I don't see any difference between what was happening in the church at the very beginning of the Christianity and what happens today. The bishop celebrating surrounded by presbyters and the faithful present in the church and confessing together the faith of Constantinople, not the Nicene we have in front of us now. And of course also saying together the Lord's Prayer. Of course, I will not enter the discussion because this is specificity of the Church of Cyprus for the election of bishops with the participation of people and then the synod. But this was the development during the centuries to come to this system. And of course, every year, in my diocese at least, we have the General Assembly of the diocese, including all the parishes committees, men and women, and all the clergy. So this is, let's say, a synodical system under their bishop. Okay, this is my comment. Moreover, an effort was made to resolve the issue of Arianism in Alexandria, where it had its beginning by convening a local synod, and this was not possible, however, given that the Arian heresy had gone well beyond the local boundaries of the Church of Alexandria. Furthermore, the issue had not been resolved by convening a synod in Caesarea in Palestine, with a participation in both cases of the Bishop Hosius of Cordoba, acting as an envoy from the Emperor Constantine the Great. The suitable conditions at the time made possible the convening of synods of bishops, in contrast to the previous period when the Emperor Licinius had forbidden the convocation of episcopal synods. Therefore, the convocation of the First Ecumenical Council on the initiative of the Emperor and the participation of a large number of bishops has firstly ecclesiastical and ecclesiological dimensions, and of course political. From a political point of view, this was the first time since the spread of Christianity within the boundaries of the Roman Empire and the cessation of persecutions, during which the emperor has become personally involved in church affairs, aiming at the unity of the empire. This unity was ensured by overcoming the doctrinal divisions of the Christian churches. This purpose coincided with the church's pursuit of unity, which was imperiled by the different heresies and specifically by Arianism. The initial and central question of our contribution today concerns the pre-existing synodal practices that were followed in the formation of the Holy and Great Council of Nicaea. Researchers introduce numerous perspectives and approaches of the matter. However, there are data that support the view that the extant practices of the local churches were followed, which were applied for the resolution of issues arising in the previous regions of the empire. And these data are the following. First, from the existing, although fragmentary, catalogue of signatures that have been recorded, it is concluded that concerning the representation of local churches, the practices of the various churches and regions of the empire were followed. This catalogue, until the Fourth Ecumenical Council, was subject to interventions, and as a result, several variations appeared, presenting a large number of bishops who took part in the sessions with the purpose of emphasizing to a greater extent the authenticity of the council. Secondly, the one who addressed the emperor at the beginning of the sessions of the council was not the president of the council, but instead the local bishop of Nicomedia, Eusebius, a fact affirming the respect for the locality of the churches. The president of the First Ecumenical Council was Oppius Hosius, the bishop of Cordoba. Thirdly, the emperor did not follow the established control protocol of the Roman Empire, designating, for example, that he should take his predetermined place and sit on the imperial throne, but he was waiting for the permission of the bishops, probably after the initial prayer. This implies that the emperor did not impose his positions on the structure and work of the Council. It also appears that neither the protocol nor the structure of the sessions corresponded to those followed by the Synod of Rome, as it has been argued by some scholars, given that the practices of synodality had already been established in the practices of the local councils. Fourth, the emperor did not preside over the work of the council, a practice retained by the emperors in the following ecumenical councils. And I agree with the remark that the Byzantine model was not followed exactly by the Russian church later. Fifth, finally, an important fact that reveals the practices of synodality was the sixth canon of the Council of Nicaea concerning the administration of the church following the metropolitan system, being in accordance with the administrative division of the empire in provinces. The conscience of the fathers, members of the council in this subject is formulated mainly in the canons in the repeated sentence, ta archaea kratito, the old customs must be kept, or η αρχαία παράδοση, the ancient tradition must be respected. It becomes evident that the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, given the political conditions which favored the Church and due to the challenges arising from Arianism, acquired an exceptional authority within the Church, an authority that was extended to the succeeding ecumenical councils. At the same time, it became the paradigm for the convocation and formation of the next councils, ecumenical or local. Of particular importance is the reference made to the oros pisteos, the formulation of the faith of the council, especially from the succeeding ecumenical councils, with the exception of the Council of Ephesus and other local synods. Always and almost in all synods, we observe that apart from addressing administrative matters, there is a dual purpose. Firstly, the definition of the orthodoxy of the faith, and secondly, the condemnation of heresy, and this is also the structure of the creed of the Nicene Synod. Apart from the unprecedented fact of the convocation of the ecumenical councils by the emperors, a practice introduced at the First Nicene Council, we observe various other characteristics which influence the following ecumenical councils to some extent. We have already mentioned above the question concerning the list of the participant bishops. The various drafts resulted in the symbolic number of 318 bishops, corresponding to the number of the 318 soldiers against whom Abraham fought and prevailed, being those who captured his nephew Lot. Therefore, the doctrinal decision of the Nicene First Ecumenical Council as a triumph against heresy from a parallel to the triumph of Abraham and the liberation of Lot. This analogy opens a new interpretative perspective on synodical practices in general. The investment of historical events with a symbolic parallel extends even to the emperor, According to a narration quoted by Theodoretus of Cyrus in his Philotheos history, the Emperor Constantine is presented as the new Zorobabel, because Zorobabel, during the period of the Babylonian capture of the Israelite people, succeeded in bringing the exiled people back to their homeland. In comparison, parallel to that, Constantine the Great restored the exiled lay and bishops, restored the destroyed Christian churches, and convocate the Council of Nicaea by inviting, I quote, all the presidents of the churches for the formation of the Nicene Council. Another legend is preserved again by the historian Theodoretus of Cyrus, referring to Mark and James from Nisibis, Iacovos Nisivos, known for the power of his prayer. This monk was obviously invited to the council, as Theodoretus implies, or came as a member of the delegation of the bishop of his church because of his spirituality. During the theological debates, difficulties seem to have arisen between the bishops supporting the Orthodox faith and those insisting on the Arian teaching. Then, according to Theodoretus, I quote, the divine James urged them all to mortify themselves with fasting and simultaneously for 7 days to beseech God to grant what would benefit the churches. Since they all welcome the proposal of the inspired man, whom they knew to shine with apostolic charisma, fasting was combined with prayer, with the helmsman of the churches decreed what would benefit them. When the appointed day arrived, on which the majority anticipated the reconciliation of the miscreant, at the time, and the time had come for the divine liturgy, and everyone expected to see the enemy of God receive pardon. At this very moment, there occurred a truly divine and extraordinary miracle. While in a disgusting and noisome place, the miserable creature instantly breathed his last and underwent his most shameful death. End of quote. In spite of the lack of historical credibility of the description of the death of Arius, because we know from other sources that he died 10 years after the council, the close relationship of prayer and the Eucharistic in the synodal process is attested. Some other examples which are used to affirm the illumination of the Holy Spirit during the work of the synodal process will make clear this perspective. In the Old Testament, for example, there is a reference to the visit of the 3 angels to Abraham to announce to him the decision of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The dialogue with the 3 visitors, as in the form of a synodal session, perceiving also the dinner offered by hosts Abraham and Sarah as foreshadowing the Eucharistic table, concerns the moral behavior of the inhabitants of the 2 cities. The final decision was, of course, the destruction of the 2 cities after the flee of Lot and his family. The second example, again from the Old Testament, is that of the ascension of Moses together with the leaders to receive the law. This is not a moral matter like the previous, but it concerns the receiving of the law and the acceptance of the covenant with the people of God. When the presence of God was experienced, according to Exodus 24:9-11, a meal was offered, also foreshadowing the Eucharistic table. Similar examples which play a major role for the synodical system of the Church are found also in the New Testament as well. An example par excellence of this is the Last Supper, according to which the Synod of Christ and the Apostles seals the New Testament of God with his Church by the blood of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross. Modern scholars inextricably link the synodical system of the Church with the Eucharist. It was mentioned also before Metropolitan of Pergamos, John Zizioulas. The Eucharistic gathering of the bishop, the presbytery, and all the people is a synod. Further interpretations of the function of synodality in the Church are the Apostolic Synod of Jerusalem, which determined the obligation of the Christians to the law. Secondly, in chapter 18 of Matthew, verses 15-18, on how to manage the fault of a brother. And C, the intervention of Paul the Apostle in matters of moral behavior in the Church of Corinth, and his advice how the question must be resolved from the Eucharistic community with the expulsion from the communion, that means excommunication, and the anathema of the guilty.
Your Eminence, may I ask you to come to an end?
Yes, I have one page more, okay?
Thank you, yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
The aforementioned points out the main principles upon which the Ecumenical Council of Nicaea was based, and which practices of synodality were followed by the particular Ecumenical Council body. It is obvious, however, that even for the formulation of the faith Horos Pisteos, the fathers, members of the council, did not introduce any kind of innovation. Like the pre-existing local synodical acts were used for the convention and constitution of the synod, in the same way the pre-existing baptismal symbols formed the basis of the formulation of the faith. The basic Christological question which was posed by Arius was, who is Jesus Christ, to whom we believe and confess in the Church? The answer has been expressed in the Synod's faith Horos, and you know very well which is this Horos. We can distinguish the creed of the faith in two parts. The first is the pure doctrinal part, and the second is the anathemas of the second part. We will not extend our discussion to the pure doctrinal theme, which is being put under the scrutiny of research about its theological accuracy in recent years, and was also under discussion during the period after the Nicene Council until the Council of Chalcedon. We can make a brief comment concerning the difference in understanding the content and the possibility of intervening in the text of the Nicene Creed. At this very point, the disagreement between Cyril of Alexandria and John of Antioch was concentrated to this point. In this conflict, the formulation and the extension of the creed made by the Council of Constantinople on 381, initially convened as a council of bishops of the East and subsequently recognized as the Second Ecumenical Council, was not at all taken into consideration. Obviously, to my opinion, the main reason for making no reference to the Council of Constantinople by the Third Ecumenical Council of Ephesus is the conflict between the thrones of Constantinople and Alexandria for their place in the diptychs. Most probably also, the Synod of Constantinople wasn't yet recognized as ecumenical, but another reason can be found in the theological discussion about the possibility of developing or not the Nicene faith formulation. The final conclusion, which is my conclusion, coincides with John's writing in the book of Revelation, and I quote, "I warn everyone who hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to them, God will add to him the plagues described in this book, and if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God will take away his share in the tree of life and in the holy city, which are described in this book." So this was the conscience that this creed was not possible to change at all, but the only possibility was to make hermeneutic of the content. Thank you very much.